Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Joe Patrick on football, where we're going to be talking about the Falcons' tough loss this Sunday afternoon to the New England Patriots, losing in Foxborough by a final of 24-23. And I think that the best way to kind of encapsulate the theme of what we saw in today's game was that the Falcons' assets and liabilities were on full display. We saw the highest highs of what this Falcons team and some of its individuals and them as a team can do. And we also saw just how catastrophic some of the deficiencies that this team has, some of the vulnerabilities that they have. We saw just how devastating they can be in this game. We're going to get into everything, both the good and the bad. So let's start with the good. First of all, Drake London, absolutely insane. Man hands. I want to start the man hands meme with him. It's a old Seinfeld joke. But this guy was going up and making some absolutely unbelievable catches in this game, and maybe highlighted by his last of his 3 touchdown catches. That was one-handed grab on 4th and 8 and on the side of the end zone, getting 2 feet down in bounds. The guy just went full beast mode today. I mean, this was the best Drake London I think that we've ever seen. Not only was he bringing it in terms of just that kind of play that helped the team on the field move the chains, score points, but also just the intensity that he brings to this team and the way that defenses have to change how they play against the Falcons when he is in the lineup. He is an absolute game changer. He's going to be one of, if not, the highest paid receivers in the NFL. I mean, he's going to be in for a massive payday when the Falcons sign him to extension. I know that there's some maybe concern that the Falcons are struggling so bad they won't be able to sign him back. I cannot imagine that's going to be the case. The Falcons will make it worth his while to stay, and I think, frankly, that he can have a lot of success with Michael Penix, who we also saw in this game play the best that he's played, I think, so far on the road. It's not like it was great by any means from Penix and this passing offense and the offense in general, but I will say that it was important to see him come back and give this team a chance to win, and he was extremely clutch in this game. Again, it wasn't fully, efficient, like when it comes to the third downs and such, and we'll talk about that in a second, but ultimately, when the game was on the line, when the throw had to be made, he made it. He also roped in another just laser of a throw to Drake London to convert, I believe, on a 4th down situation with the game ostensibly on the line at that point. Also had a really nice one. I can't remember on what down it was. I can't remember, but there was one over to Bergeron in the flat where he just kind of opens up his body and threw an absolute laser to Bijan for a clutch conversion. So Michael Penix showing off some of the arm talent in this game, not necessarily with the deep ball itself, but just with the velocity in which he was able to get the ball out to some receivers on some key plays, was really, really impressive from the young quarterback. Now we need to see more consistency from him over time, but listen, he's a young quarterback still making his 10th start in the NFL. So it was positive developments with Michael Penix in this game for sure. Bijan Robinson, it was tough going on the ground for this team. We kind of knew that was going to be the case with this New England Patriots defense, who just nobody can run against. So you can't expect to change that trend. But we saw Bijan get involved in the passing game, especially late. And I'm mainly just kind of highlighting him for some of the highlight-worthy plays that he had in this game with some of the one-handed catches and such. Just a special player like we always knew about. On the defensive side of the football, positives for this team: 6 sacks from this defensive line. Those 6 sacks came from 3 players. LaCale London, surprisingly, with 2 sacks, as did Brandon Dorlus had 2 sacks, and Ruka Roro had 2 sacks. And I would say overall, this defense really did limit Drake May to the level that you needed him to be in order to potentially get a win in this game. You knew you weren't going to win this game if Drake May has played like he has in the last 3 games or so. I mean, the guy has been one of the best quarterbacks in football over that stretch, and that makes the game unwinnable, basically, if he's playing at that level. And the Falcons did what they needed to do on that front. Was it perfect? No, they still gave up their fair share of explosives. Again, we have a whole thing we're going to talk about on third downs a little bit later. But ultimately, they turned Drake May over twice. Once with that fumble recovery by James Pierce Jr. that sets up the offense for a touchdown that it really felt like they had to have because frankly it looked like for a second that game there was going to get totally out of hand with the Patriots potentially driving to go up even more. I can't remember what the score exactly was at the time, but Patriots were driving to add to their multi-scored lead, and then we're also getting the ball back after halftime. So for the Falcons to sneak that touchdown in there really did help, saved the game. Really, it did save the game. I mean, this was a competitive game. Obviously, that the Falcons had every chance of winning by the end of it, given what they did. But again, we'll get to why that didn't happen in just a second. Also, want to highlight Jalen Walker, who came back to the team after having missed a couple games with a groin strain that he's been dealing with since training camp. Just thought he was really impressive. Obviously, has the knockout on that fumble that James Pierce Jr. picked up and returned to the 6 yard line. But just thought Jalen Walker, he just makes such a difference in the run game. Just brings such a presence on the edge. I know he was burned a little bit early in this game, trying to cover some running backs in space. And again, that's something I think that the Patriots exploited the Falcons really well. In fact, we'll talk about that in just a second. But ultimately, I thought that Jalen Walker makes a huge impact, obviously, to this front. It's the reason why they drafted him where they did, and hopefully they can keep him healthy, which the health does seem to be an increasingly big issue for this team. But overall, this defense really responded in the second half, only giving up 3 points and giving this Falcons team a chance to win. And it certainly didn't seem likely that that was going to be the case, given what we saw in the first half, where let's just talk about this third downs. I feel like we've been tap dancing around to this point in the show. I mean, it was on, when the disparity is so large on third down in particular, it makes it seem like football in general is very easy for the Patriots and football is complicated and borderline impossible for the Falcons, who at one point did not have a third down conversion. Actually, going into halftime, the Falcons did not have a third down conversion, and the Patriots were 4 for 5 on third down. And it just felt like that was the way that the tide was going in that first half. It was pretty much one-way stuff. Now, the Falcons did enough to keep themselves in the game, like we just talked about with the turnovers, but ultimately, that third down rate is just completely unsustainable. And the way it finishes is the Falcons 1 for 10 on third downs and 2 for 3 with some on fourth downs. So was that 3 for 13 overall on third and fourth down situations? That's extremely poor, obviously. And the Patriots were 8 of 12 on third down. So on the complete other end of the spectrum, just so happened that the majority, 3 of those third down stops that the Falcons had all came in the second half when they really needed it to get themselves back in this game. But, I kind of feel like the third down situation is more symptomatic of just like the overall wins that the schemes are having against each other and that the players are having against each other versus like the conversion rates being like causal of the way that things are going. I know obviously, it affects the game when you convert on third down, but just the Falcons were in not nearly the kinds of down and distances that it took to convert. And it was just the overall output of each team's offenses that made it so that the Patriots were so much more efficient on that down, and it really hurt the Falcons. Now, the Falcons will most likely be looking, well, I shouldn't even say most likely, but I guess that's a responsible thing to say at this time, journalism and everything. We'll be looking for a kicker this week to replace Parker Romo because it's an untenable situation going forward at this point for Romo. Unfortunate situation. Makes a kick in this game. I will note that kick squeaked in by one of the uprights, but misses. Not that I know anybody who's watching this didn't know, but misses the extra point, or the point after touchdown late in this game that would have tied it. Falcons did get the ball back and have a chance to put together another drive to potentially get the game-winning field goal. Of course, that does not come to pass. There was a intentional grounding that was kind of controversial on that drive that helped end it. Reportedly, Patriots players were clapping and that initiated Ryan Newsel to make the snap. He was thinking that it was the clapping coming from Michael Penix to snap the ball, and so there was some controversy there. But I mean, I don't know how much confidence anybody had in Parker Romo potentially making a kick to win it after that had just happened, and it's just been not clean from him. Since the Falcons parted ways with Younghoe Koo and brought in Romo, he has still continued to struggle, arguably more than Koo ever did. It seemed like, because of the situation that happened with Koo last year, the team was very quick to make that move, moving off of him this season. And Parker Romo has, frankly, he's had some misses. He's had just bad kicks where, like, I believe it was against the Buffalo Bills, with every kick in the NFL is a crucial kick because of the way that it changes the spreads in terms of the scoring. But, that was just not a sideways kick that was just coming off his foot. So it just has not been good enough. Now, this team does have a kicker on its practice squad. His name is Ben Sauls. He's out of Pitt. Interestingly, he's left-footed. I'm assuming that's not a massive difference for the holder Bradley Pinion to adjust to, or the long snapper Liam McCullough, but is interesting. It's like, yeah, so many lefties on this Falcons team. But they do have him on the practice squad, but they will certainly bring in more kickers to work out. I wonder if they are like the same kickers they've brought in previously, and are willing to give them another look. We'll see. We'll see what the Falcons do there. But it's such a bad situation. And I think just kind of emblematic of what is arguably just a poor coaching job to this point, when you have all these problems that pop up like a whack-a-mole, whether it's a kicker not able to make a missed kick, or offensive operation stuff like having to take a timeout to avoid a delay of game after you get a penalty in your favor that basically just gives you a free first down. It was moving the ball 5 yards. It's not like it was a massive penalty that moved the ball from one end of the field to the other. And like, how do these breakdowns happen? It just feels like ill discipline. I would also say it's not just Raheem Morris that is, for that there's blame for. I would also say that like Terry Fontenot, some of the thing that we've always talked about with Fontenot is that, and some people are saying like, I'm not going to give him credit for first round picks. And I guess that's fair. Like, I obviously understand where that perspective comes from, where that notion comes from. What we've said is that this is still a very talented team in terms of the top players they have and their ability. But we've always said that just, the team does not have the depth that the top teams do, the championship caliber teams do. And it's because there's just been too many misses in the middle of the draft. And there's been, not enough opportunities, not enough, literal like lotto tickets taken on players, because they've been very willing to trade picks away. And so it's just kind of been bad management in building up the depth of the roster in order to not allow some of these negative aspects of the team to really overcome you. So like when we see a player like Divine Diablo get hurt and be unable to play, there's just not really a great option there to replace him that is costing the team. And that's not just at that position. It's along the offensive line. It's at wide receiver. It's in so many different areas where this team is just not really prepared for this season to have success. And I think that you could say that it extends to the kicking position as well, just based on the way that the kicking situation was handled this offseason, which was not really much of a competition between Younghoe Koo and Lenny Krieg, the international developmental player that was brought in. So I think there's obviously fair criticism to be had for Terry Fontenot, even in a result like this, for just like the place that the roster is in, basically. Jeff Ulbrich said at the beginning of the season, it's defense is it's a lot of it's winning one-on-one matchups, and it's about guys competing individually. And it's obviously as part of a team. The defense works as a team unit, but there's 11 guys out there that are competing usually up against one other guy on a given play, and it's about just winning those reps. And the Falcons just don't win enough reps. I'm not saying it's on the defense; it's just kind of all over the place right now, and not consistent enough. Sometimes they will get hot, and we've seen like that first half against Buffalo. Later on in this game, you could see things starting to click, but they go away. And again, I think when people perceive like what is a well-coached team, you perceive a team that has a certain level of consistency throughout games, from one game to another. And I think that there's been reasonable arguments to be had that the Falcons have not had that whatsoever, basically, this season, and Raheem Morris's tenure, for various reasons. A lot of important decisions have been made again on the roster that have contributed to that. But again, I think that's the kind of the theme of what this game showed. It was the assets, it was these great players that were out there making these great plays, and it was these liabilities like we've talked about. And as far as the game goes, I do just want to say one thing. Again, this is kind of related to a coaching point, but I just felt like early in this game, especially, the Patriots' game plan was winning. Their game plan was essentially to exploit their own, or exploit the Falcons' kind of underneath coverage defenders, and they did that by targeting their running backs and tight ends quite often. And they had a lot of success. We've seen J.D. Bertrand struggle, trying to green dog is kind of the football term for it, but it's kind of like spying a running back and then having him in man coverage coming out of it. And he's usually a step slow. He was arguably picked, but that similar thing happened to clinch the game for the Patriots, where they convert in the flat to seal up the game. But that has been a consistent problem, and I credit the Patriots coaching staff and Josh McDaniels, their offensive coordinator, for obviously noting that deficiency that the Falcons had, and ruthlessly exploiting it. I kind of feel bad for the secondary, because they didn't really allow a whole lot in this game, and Jesse Bates gets an interception. I mean, I thought that generally speaking, it was they definitely did their jobs, and Drake May had some big plays for sure. You can't always totally avoid that stuff, but definitely played well enough to win. One other liability that this team is going to have going forward is the state of the offensive line. Obviously, Storm Norton was unable to return this week, and I will note, I'll try to get more information about this when we talk to Raheem Morris next, but Storm Norton was a full participant, has been a full participant in practice, essentially since kind of getting his feet back in his 21-day return to play window, and then was a DNP on Friday's practice before being ruled out. And it was with a foot. I would have to check. I believe that I don't know. I believe that it was originally, at least, termed an ankle injury, so I'm not sure if there was an additional injury that was sustained there in practice, or if this is just maybe it was a day they planned to rest him if they knew he wasn't going to play in the game. So we'll see. We'll see on his status. But you've already got that situation going on. But then in this game, you lose Matthew Bergeron on, I think, the opening drive. It felt like he was out from the very early moments of the game. Kyle Hinton comes in to replace him. And more concerningly, late on, Chris Lindstrom is out of this game. He was out of this game on that final drive where the Falcons were unable to get things going, and they had some operational issues. Ryan Newsel has that quick snap. I don't want to say that like if Lindstrom was in there, it would have changed things necessarily, but he is obviously a key communicator on that front. And if he is out for any matter of time, really, the Falcons are going to be in big trouble along that offensive front, and we'll see about Bergeron as well. But Bergeron, it was an ankle. Lindstrom, I saw, was listed with a foot, but there was no other further update other than that. So you never know with an offensive lineman, and because of the nature of the position, they can probably play through some things that other players are not able to play through. Just based on the way that their physiques work and what they're trying to accomplish. So we'll see about their statuses, but that would be a major hit, if they're playing. Jovan Gwynn was getting snaps in this game by the end of it. So that was bad. And then the other bad thing, we got to wrap up. It's like the team's 3-5 now. Like, this is dire territory for this team. We kind of knew that after you lose to Miami, like that's a game that really kind of set you on the back foot going forward when it comes to trying to project out what's going to happen this season and making a playoff run. Obviously, it seemed really silly to even suggest such a thing in the wake of that embarrassing loss to the Dolphins. But the players are still going to be, thinking this way. The organization's still thinking this way about trying to achieve their ambitions. And so this puts it in, ever more stark clarity that, it's tougher and tougher. They're going to basically have to go 7-2 the rest of the way if they want to make the playoffs. And to put that into context, like, 7-2 is what the Colts are right now, and like they're the talk of the NFL. They're like the toast apple of everybody's eye. That's what the Falcons would suddenly have to turn into from this point forward in the season, and their next game is going to be in Germany, where they're playing the aforementioned Colts. So I guess what better way to start that 7-2 run, snatch their 7-2 magic away from them, than to go out there and get a win. But I think that that's what they're going to have to do if they want to have a chance to make the playoffs this year, which, again, not to suggest that it's a probability whatsoever at this point. I think there was a Kalshi or something. I saw like some stat because last year we were calling it the stats when they were saying like they were 93% to make it, right? So this year we'll say I think I saw there was that they were like 15% to make the playoffs, which that even seems high, and it's probably not at 15% now that they've lost this game. So that's the bad news, and another one of the liabilities they're going to have going forward. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Instant Reaction here on Joe Patrick on Football. Follow us at 92.9 The Game on YouTube if you want to watch these. If you're listening, and if you're watching and you want to listen on the go, just search Joe Patrick on Football wherever you get your podcast. Click like on this if you just want to see more of these pop into your YouTube feed. Basically, have the algorithm feed you more. Okay, thanks guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.